We talked about skimming filtration. We talked about siting the pond, siting the waterfall on the pond itself, and we talked about taking the dirt from the pond and flipping it up to create the berm for the waterfall. What we didn't talk about was steps in the pond. I've seen ponds out there that for some reason, there was a Better Homes and Gardens article out in the 1970s that said dig this bowl shape, you know, for your pond. It'll be fantastic. Well, anybody have a bowl-shaped pond? Nobody in here, good. Can you imagine how to get in and out of a bowl-shaped pond? No, not good. So you can see we have steps in the pond. So when we dig the pond, normally what I'd say is, dig the whole pond down to 8 or 10 inches deep, the whole pond. So we painted the outline of the pond, and now we dig that whole thing down to about 8 or 10 inches deep. And that's our first shelf. So the reason for that first shelf, number one, is safety. So, you know, when my kids were little, you know, it was important to me that they didn't just fall right in, right? So that first shelf is there for safety, that you can, it's like a staircase to get in and out of the pond. If you walk around all of our ponds out here, you'll see that first shelf. The other thing on that first shelf, 6 or 8 inches deep of water is perfect for a lot of our marginals. So if you see some of the plants that we have in here, we're overwintering in season, we'll have about 150 different varieties of pond plants. Most of those are going to be marginal plants that love 6 or 8 inches of water. But having a shelf in your pond to grow these marginal plants makes it look awesome and does wonders for the filtration. So that first shelf, safety, and also for plants, okay? The second shelf, now all of a sudden we're down here at the second shelf, is a little bit deeper. So it's 16 to 20 inches shelf. So remember we dug that first shelf, you know, 10 inches, let's say. Now we got this next shelf, another 10 inches. So we're down around 20 inches. Plant pockets for lilies. So this is a shelf that lilies are gonna love. You know, so if you've read that same Better Homes and Gardens article, it said raise and lower your lilies all the time. Forget that. Who wants to look at potted lilies in their crystal clear water? You want to plant them down in. So if everybody can see that detail through there, when we're digging that second shelf, we're actually doing a little indentation in the dirt, and then we're pushing the underlayment down on top, down in that hole, and then we're pushing the rubber liner down there. And then when you buy your lily comes with a little bit of soil, and so that goes down in that plant pocket. If you've ever seen a pond where the plants have just totally taken over, you know, it's probably because, you know, they didn't do plant pockets, they just set it right on the surface. Doing plant pockets, you can now, easier maintenance to keep that plant contained on that one shelf. So that was the second shelf, and now we go down to the third shelf. Most of our ponds, I would say 75% of all the ponds that either do-it-yourself ponds or are professionally constructed ponds are in that 24 to 30 inch deep depth. That's plenty deep for fish around here to survive the winter. I have a buddy up in Canada, they get way colder up there. He uses that same rule. The warmth from the ground keeps the bottom 2/3 of this pond open. So, you know, so typically, you know, in a super, super cold winter, you could get, you know, 6 to 8 inches of ice. But if you're 30 inches deep, you know, this ground temperature down here is what, 55 degrees or whatever. So that's going to keep that water, you know, unfrozen. The biggest thing in the wintertime is just to make sure that we have the proper depth, you know, through here. And that 24 to 30 is perfectly fine. You can go deeper, you know, so we get calls all the time, super ambitious. Hey, I got a buddy came over with a backhoe and my pond is 9 feet deep. And it's like, oh boy. And then we start going through everything, you know, it's like, I told you not to dig before we talked, you know. But even in a pond that's 9 feet deep, you know, I would do steps, you know. The problem with a pond that's 9 feet deep is now all of a sudden the skimmer type filtration is not quite enough to handle everything. So we start talking about striations in the water levels. We start talking about aeration systems, things like that. So anywhere between 2 to 4 feet is perfect, and this system will work just fine for. I don't really see a huge need to ever go deeper than 4 feet in a typical backyard pond. We do swim ponds and we do acre-sized lakes, so we go deeper, but that's a different animal. So just keep in mind, 2 to 4 feet is perfect.